"Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal." So that opening sentence for the address is very well known. In case you're curious, you don't know what a score is 20 years. So 7 years ago, that's 87 years. Now, here's something that's really, really interesting. The reporters who were writing down the speech as Abraham Lincoln was giving it and then put it into the papers, they recorded it as using the numeric 87. Many of them did not say 7 years ago. So, Lincoln obviously knew people didn't go around saying 7 years ago, right? The people would have said 87 years ago. But if we think about that, 7 years ago, how does that sound, right? Well, to me, it sounds biblical, right? It sounds of importance, and it's incredibly eloquent. So what Lincoln is setting into motion here is that we're measuring time almost biblically. This is like a sacred mission, and it's been a sacred amount of time since the founding of the nation. 87 years is really not that long, right? Between 1776 and 1863. It's really not that long, just 87 years. So what Lincoln does, he starts out by saying that less than 100 years ago, the United States was founded, and was founded on this principle that all men are created equal. Now, if you contrast that idea with slavery, right, you can see the hypocrisy that's wrapped up inside of here. Plus, remember the founding fathers, what they were moving away from in Europe? Monarchy. For over 1,000 years, people were governed by kings and queens, right? There was no equality. How you were born, that's just how it was. If you didn't like it, you didn't like it. If you made trouble, then you could be killed, right? So obviously here, Lincoln is making some connections between what it was like living under a monarchy to what it's like living under slavery at this time. He's trying to draw that parallel. So if we think about it, here's this upstart democracy in the Americas that's saying that monarchy, which has been, like we said, the rule for over 1,000 years, is silly, and that we should have a monarchy, right? So what's the proof? They're fighting a civil war. So what Lincoln is doing, he's kind of reminding the audience at the beginning of the address that this experiment of freedom, of liberty, equality, we have to continue this experiment. Otherwise, what's the point? We might as well, call the king and queen of England, put them in boats and bring them over and just let them rule America too, if that's going to be the result. So if democracy of the United States falls apart, right? If the Union doesn't hold together, then it was a failed experiment. So we cannot let the experiment fail. We cannot let that happen. Now, Lincoln next starts to really bring some power into the address. Let me read here. In a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. So what he's doing is he's drawing attention away from his previous topic to the battlefield dead, right? Those 50,000 who they're just very slowly going through in the process of burying. So what is he saying? He says it's not about us, it's about them. They have sacrificed. They are the martyrs for the cause. We cannot consecrate the cemetery, because the soldiers have already consecrated it with their blood and with their lives. That's already happened. The cemetery is consecrating us. Now, let's listen to this. There's some unfinished work to do here. It is for the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, a new birth, that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Now, what Lincoln is doing here is really powerful because he's kind of pulling a switcheroo, right? Again, we're not here to dedicate the cemetery. The cemetery is here to dedicate us. Men have died here, right? They are the martyrs. If someone is a martyr, you cannot, you just have to honor that sacrifice. You have to honor the fact that they're martyrs. So, come to the battlefield of Gettysburg. Come to this cemetery, Lincoln is saying, and take renewed heart in the mission of continuing democracy, continuing equality, and continuing to fight for the United States of America.